The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with excitement. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for the annual military review, where each species would present their contributions to galactic defense. The massive chamber stretched for miles, filled with beings of every shape and size imaginable. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthani Empire stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing dramatically. His scaled hide gleamed under the artificial lights as he addressed the assembly. The Vorthani were one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, their reputation built on centuries of successful campaigns. Honored delegates, Zethkar began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space. We gather today to review our defensive capabilities. The Krillian Hive contributes their swarm fleets. The Etherian Collective brings their energy shields. The Mordak clans offer their battle stations. Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Each species mentioned had earned their place through demonstrated military prowess. Their weapons were advanced, their strategies proven, their warriors feared across the galaxy. And then, Zethkar continued, his tone shifting to barely contained. Amusement. We have Earth. Laughter erupted throughout the hall. Some delegates actually fell from their seats, their multiple limbs flailing as they tried to contain their mirth. The sound echoed off the chamber walls, a cacophony of alien amusement. The humans, Zethkar said, pausing for dramatic effect, still fight with metal projectiles fired by chemical explosions. They call these bullets and seem quite proud of them. The laughter grew louder. A holographic display materialized above the podium, showing footage of human soldiers in combat. The images were deliberately chosen to make humanity look primitive and outmatched. Look at this. Zethkar gestured to the display. They carry their weapons by hand, as if they were ancient tools instead of instruments of war. They wear fabric for protection instead of energy shields. They travel in wheeled vehicles that can be stopped by the simplest obstacles. More laughter followed. The crystalline entities chimed in harmonious mockery, while the gas cloud collective pulsed with what could only be described as cosmic giggling. Their space fleet, Zethkar continued, consists of metal tubes propelled by controlled explosions. They actually burn fuel to move through space like some primitive rocket from the dawn of civilization. Their largest warship carries fewer weapons than a Vorthani patrol craft. The human representative, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, sat quietly, in the designated Earth section. She had endured this humiliation for years, watching as her species was mocked and belittled. Around her, the few other human diplomats maintained their composure, though she could see the tension in their shoulders. The humans, Zethkar's voice dripped with condescension, have contributed exactly 0 victories to galactic defense in the past 500 years. Their colonies require constant protection from more capable species. Their trade routes must be patrolled by real military forces, because their own ships cannot defend a simple merchant vessel. The ambassador brought up another hologram. This one showing human colonies under attack. The footage showed human defenders being quickly overwhelmed by even minor pirate raids. What the display did not show was how those same pirates had mysteriously vanished completely shortly after, or how their base of operations had been turned into a crater that still glowed with residual radiation. I propose, Zethkar announced, that Earth's protection fees be increased by 300%. If they cannot contribute to galactic defense, they must at least pay those who can. The hall erupted in approval. Delegates from dozens of species voiced their agreement, some calling for even higher increases. The sound was deafening, a wall of alien voices demanding more from the apparently helpless humans. Furthermore, Zethkar continued once the noise died down, I suggest we formalize what has long been obvious. Earth and her colonies should be placed under direct military oversight. The Vorthani Empire volunteers to provide this service, naturally at the appropriate compensation. This was met with even greater enthusiasm. The idea of formally reducing humanity to a protected status appealed to many in the assembly. It would legitimize what they already believed about human weakness and provide additional resources to more deserving species. Ambassador Rodriguez finally stood. The hall gradually quieted as delegates noticed the small human figure rising from her seat. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. The Earth delegation acknowledges the concerns raised by Ambassador Zethkar, she said. We will convey these proposals to our government for consideration. That was it. No protest, no defiant speech, no threat of retaliation. Just quiet acceptance of the galaxy's judgment. The delegates exchanged knowing looks. This was exactly the kind of response they expected from humans. Zethkar smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Excellent. I look forward to working with Earth in this new capacity. Perhaps with proper guidance, humanity might eventually contribute something meaningful to galactic civilization. The session ended with much self-congratulation among the alien species. They had finally formalized what everyone knew about humans. They were weak, backwards, and completely dependent on their betters for survival. Light years away on Earth, Director Sarah Chen sat in her office deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The transmission from the Galactic Council played on her screen, but she was not watching it for the first time. She had seen it live, along with every other member of the Terran Defense Corps leadership. Chen was a small woman in her 50s, with graying hair and tired eyes. She had spent her entire career managing humanity's relationship with the galactic community. It was not an easy job, requiring constant vigilance and careful planning. Around the conference table, other directors watched the transmission with various expressions. Some looked angry, others seemed amused. A few appeared completely neutral, as if they were watching weather reports rather than their species being humiliated on a galactic stage. Well, said General Marcus Webb, a tall man with the bearing of someone accustomed to command. It seems our performance was convincing. Dr. Keiko Tanaka, the head of advanced research, smiled slightly. The Vorthani took the bait perfectly. Zethkar has no idea what he just volunteered his empire for. Chen leaned back in her chair. Are we ready to proceed with the next phase? The orbital platforms have been in standby mode for 6 months, reported Admiral Lisa Park. All systems show green. The fleet is dispersed and waiting for activation codes. Ground forces have completed their deployment, added General Webb. Every human colony has full defensive capabilities hidden and ready. The agricultural settlements have finished their fortifications. Chen nodded slowly. For over 1,000 years, humanity had played the role of galactic weaklings. They had accepted mockery, paid excessive fees, and allowed stronger species to treat them like children. It had been a long, careful game of patience and preparation. Dr. Tanaka, Chen said, what is the status of the genetic suppression protocols? The scientist consulted her tablet. The inhibitor treatments have been gradually reduced over the past decade. Current suppression levels are at 15% and dropping. We estimate another 6 months before full reversion to baseline human genetics. For centuries, humanity had used advanced genetic therapy to suppress their more aggressive traits. The galaxy had demanded it as a condition of membership in galactic civilization. Humans were simply too dangerous in their natural state. The aliens had claimed, too violent, too unpredictable, too willing to fight. So humanity had agreed to change themselves. They had accepted genetic modification that dampened their territorial instincts, reduced their capacity for violence, and made them more suitable for peaceful coexistence with other species. The galaxy had praised this as human evolution toward a more civilized state. What the galaxy did not know was that the suppression was temporary and reversible. Intelligence reports? Chen asked. Colonel James Morrison, head of Galactic Intelligence, opened his files. Our operatives maintain their positions throughout alien space. The Vorthani military command structure has been completely mapped. We have detailed specifications for all major alien weapon systems and defensive installations. He paused to bring up a holographic display showing the galaxy's major trade routes and military positions. Red dots marked human intelligence assets, and there were thousands of them. Sleeper networks have been activated in all major systems. Our merchants and diplomats have spent centuries building relationships and gathering information. When the time comes, we will know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. Chen studied the display. Each red dot represented years of careful preparation. Human agents had spent lifetimes building cover identities, establishing trust, and positioning themselves within alien societies. They had been mocked and dismissed, treated as harmless curiosities from a backwards planet. None of the alien species had considered that the friendly human trader might be a trained operative, or that the quiet human diplomat might be conducting detailed surveillance of their military installations. Why would they? Humans were obviously too primitive and peaceful to pose any real threat. What about the archaeology teams? Chen asked. Dr. Sarah Kim, the head of historical research, looked uncomfortable. We've confirmed the existence of the old archives on 17 worlds. The records are still there, buried in systems that most current civilizations consider primitive. The Vorthani in particular seem to have completely forgotten their own history from 1,000 years ago. This was perhaps the most important element of their preparation. Throughout the galaxy, buried in ancient databases and forgotten archives, were records from humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. Records that told a very different story than the one currently accepted as truth. Excellent, Chen said. Then we proceed as planned. Dr. Tanaka, begin the final phase of genetic reversion. Admiral Park, start bringing the orbital platforms online, but keep them in passive mode. General Webb, alert all colony commanders to prepare for transition to active defense. And the Vorthani? Asked Colonel Morrison. Chen smiled, and for just a moment something very old and very dangerous flickered in her eyes. Let them come. Ambassador Zethkar wants to provide military oversight for human colonies. We should accommodate his request. The meeting ended, and the directors dispersed to their various duties. Each had preparations to make, systems to activate, and personnel to brief. The galaxy had made its intentions clear. Humanity would be reduced to a client species, protected and controlled by their betters. But as the directors left the conference room, each carried with them the knowledge of what was really about to happen. The galaxy had forgotten why they had been so afraid of humanity in the first place. They had mistaken 1,000 years of restraint for weakness, genetic suppression for natural evolution. Soon they would remember. Soon they would understand that humanity had not grown weak or civilized. They had simply been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake up. In the depths of Luna Base, automated systems began their startup sequences. Weapons that had been dormant for centuries slowly powered up, their energy signatures carefully masked to avoid detection. Across the solar system, similar installations began their own preparations. On distant colonies, human farmers and merchants quietly opened sealed bunkers and activated equipment that had been disguised as agricultural or industrial machinery. Children who had grown up thinking they were simple colonists learned that their parents had been training them for war since birth. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. It thought humans were weak, dependent, and helpless. Very soon, it would learn how wrong it had been. The species that had once fought their way out of a death world and conquered half the galaxy was about to remind everyone why they had been feared for so very long. Ambassador Zethkar and his fellow delegates went to sleep that night confident in their superiority and amused by human weakness. They had no idea that their mockery had just signed their species' death warrant. The farming colony of New Geneva looked peaceful from orbit. Rolling green fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with simple structures that appeared to be nothing more than storage barns and equipment sheds. A few hundred humans worked the land, growing crops that would feed colonies throughout the sector. Commander Vexthal of the Vorthani Third Fleet studied the planet through his ship's sensors. His orders were simple: establish a military presence on the colony and begin the process of bringing the humans under proper supervision. It should be a routine operation. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting minimal defensive capabilities. A few orbital communication satellites, some ground-based sensor arrays, and what appears to be a small civilian starport. Vexthal nodded. This was exactly what he had expected from human intelligence reports. The colonists were farmers, not soldiers. They would surrender quickly once they understood the new reality of galactic politics. Send down the first wave, he ordered. 2 companies should be sufficient to secure the primary settlement. Have them explain the situation to the local authorities and establish our command post. The troop transports descended through New Geneva's atmosphere, their gleaming hulls reflecting the sunlight. Vorthani soldiers filled the ships, confident and well-equipped. They carried energy weapons that could slice through steel, war armor that could deflect most known projectiles, and had centuries of military experience behind them. What they did not expect was for their transports to explode before reaching the ground. The first transport simply vanished in a ball of plasma. One moment it was descending normally, the next it was expanding particles of superheated gas. The second transport lasted a few seconds longer before something tore through its hull like paper. "Report!" Vexthal shouted as alarms blared throughout. His bridge. "Unknown weapons fire from the surface," his sensor operator called out. "I'm not detecting any energy signatures consistent with known human technology." "Visual confirmation of hostiles?" "Negative, sir. The surface appears unchanged." "Wait." The operator paused, studying his displays. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy. Signatures from what we thought were agricultural buildings. They're not barns, sir. They're weapons platforms." On the surface of New Geneva, Farmer Tom Rodriguez wiped soil from his hands and looked up at the burning debris falling from the sky. He had been working in the fields when the alert came through his neural implant. Vorthani forces were attempting to land. Around him, other colonists emerged from their positions. What had appeared to be a simple farming community moments before was now revealed as something very different. The barns were sliding open to reveal missile batteries. The equipment sheds were retracting their camouflage to show defensive turrets. Even the irrigation systems were transforming into weapons emplacements. "Maria," Tom called to his wife, who was operating what looked like a grain harvester, but was actually a mobile artillery platform. "How many did we get?" "Both transports," she replied, not looking up from her targeting display. "Clean kills. No survivors." Tom nodded and activated his own systems. The farming equipment around him was real and functional, but it had secondary purposes. The tractor beside him unfolded to reveal a multi-barreled weapon capable of engaging orbital targets. The greenhouse nearby was retracting its transparent panels to unveil a sophisticated sensor array. In orbit, Commander Vexthal stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The peaceful farming colony had transformed into a fortress in a matter of minutes. Weapon signatures that had been completely invisible were now broadcasting loud and clear, and they were far more advanced than anything in Vorthani arsenals. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "I'm detecting at least 40 separate targeting systems focused on our position. Energy signatures suggest they're capable of penetrating our shields." "Impossible," Vexthal snarled. "They're humans. Their technology is centuries behind ours." "Sir, incoming transmission from the surface." The main screen flickered to life, showing a middle-aged human woman in work clothes. She was standing in what appeared to be a command center, though moments earlier it had probably looked like a simple farmhouse. "Vorthani vessel," the woman said calmly. "This is Colony Administrator Sarah Martinez. You have attacked a peaceful settlement without provocation. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Vexthal's 4 eyes widened in shock. A human was threatening him? A farmer was giving orders to a Vorthani commander? "Human," he replied, his voice filled with contempt. "You have destroyed military transports. This is an act of war. Surrender now or face complete annihilation." Martinez smiled, and something in that expression made Vexthal's blood run cold. "Commander, you attacked us first. We merely defended ourselves. Now you have a choice. Leave our system immediately, or discover what happens when you threaten a human colony." "You dare," Vexthal began, but Martinez cut him off. "We've been playing by galactic rules for 1,000 years, she said, being polite, following protocols, accepting insults and demands for tribute. But you just crossed a line. You attacked our home." The transmission ended, leaving Vexthal staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They had expected easy victory over primitive humans, not a confrontation with an apparently advanced and hostile civilization. "All ships," Vexthal commanded, "prepare for orbital bombardment. We'll teach these humans the cost of defying the Vorthani Empire. His fleet's weapons charged with deadly energy. Massive cannons that could crack continents swiveled toward the planet's surface. This was how the Vorthani had conquered dozens of worlds, raining destruction from orbit until resistance crumbled. The barrage began with devastating force. Energy beams that could vaporize mountains lanced down toward New Geneva's surface. Explosive projectiles capable of creating new canyons streaked through the atmosphere. It was enough firepower to sterilize an entire continent. But the weapons never reached their targets. Defensive screens materialized around the colony, energy barriers that absorbed the orbital bombardment without visible strain. Counter-battery fire rose from the surface, streams of directed energy that struck Vorthani ships with impossible precision. Shields at 60%, reported the tactical officer as their flagship shuddered under impacts. How? Vexthal demanded. How are they doing this? Sir, we're receiving another transmission. This time it was a different human, an older man with calm eyes and a slight smile. He was standing beside what looked like farming equipment, but Vexthal could now see weapons, systems embedded in the machinery. Commander, the man said, my name is Thomas Chen. I've been farming this land for 30 years. Before that, I was a tactical officer in the Terran Defense Corps. Before that, I was a lot of things. Chen gestured to the other humans visible in the background. Every person on this colony is a volunteer. We came here knowing that someday someone would try to take our home away from us. We've been preparing for this day for 3 decades. Impossible, Vexthal whispered. What's impossible, Chen continued, is that your intelligence services never asked why humans volunteer for remote colony assignments. Why would peaceful farmers want to live on the edge of known space? Why would simple people choose to struggle with harsh conditions when they could live comfortably on developed worlds? The truth was beginning to dawn on Vexthal, but it was too late to process it properly. We volunteered, Chen said, because we knew conflicts like this were inevitable. Every human colony has people like us, farmers who used to be soldiers, merchants who used to be tacticians, teachers who used to be intelligence operatives. We've been waiting. More Vorthani ships shuddered under surface fire. Several smaller vessels were already showing critical damage, their crews struggling to maintain basic systems. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving distress signals from the 7th and 9th battalions. What? They're not even in this system. Sir, they were conducting patrol operations in the Kepler sector. They report coming. Under attack by unknown forces using advanced human technology. Vexthal felt his world beginning to collapse. If humans were fighting back across multiple systems, this was not an isolated incident. This was coordinated resistance on a scale that should have been impossible for the galaxy's weakest species. Commander, another voice called from the communication system. This is Admiral Lisa Park of the Terran Defense Corps. You are in violation of interstellar law by attacking civilian settlements. Withdraw your forces immediately. Terran Defense Corps? Vexthal repeated. Intelligence reports indicated that humans had no unified military structure. Your intelligence reports, Admiral Park replied, were exactly what we wanted them to contain. Every human you've dismissed as a peaceful trader or simple diplomat has been gathering information for centuries. Every colony you thought was defenseless has been preparing for war. Every treaty you believed kept us under control was actually giving us time to get ready. On his tactical display, Vexthal could see new contacts appearing throughout the system. Ships that had not been there moments before were decloaking or emerging from hiding places among asteroids and gas clouds. They appeared to be human vessels, but their technology signatures were unlike anything in the galactic databases. You wanted to provide military oversight for human colonies, Admiral Park continued. Consider this your introduction to what that actually means. Every world you thought was helpless has weapons that make your fleet look like children's toys. Every human you believed was harmless has been trained for combat since birth. The Vorthani flagship shook under another salvo. From the surface, warning lights flashed throughout the bridge as multiple systems reported damage. Sir, the weapons officer reported. Our main batteries are offline. Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. We've lost contact with 4 escort vessels. Vexthal stared at the tactical display, watching his fleet being systematically dismantled by forces that should not have existed. Human ships that moved like predators, weapons that struck with impossible accuracy, and defensive systems that made his advanced technology look primitive. "This is impossible," he said again. But the words sounded hollow even to him. "No," came Thomas Chen's voice from the surface. "This is human. We've been polite for 1,000 years, Commander. We've followed your rules, paid your fees, and accepted your insults. But you made one critical mistake." "What mistake?" Vexthal asked, though he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. "You forgot that we chose to be polite. Politeness is not weakness, Commander. It's a choice, and choices can be changed." The remaining Vorthani ships were in full retreat now, their formations broken and their confidence shattered. What should have been a simple occupation of a farming colony had become a military disaster that would require explanations Vexthal did not know how to give. As his damaged fleet limped away from New Geneva, Vexthal finally understood what had happened. The galaxy had not been dealing with a weak species kept in line by superior civilizations. They had been dealing with a sleeping giant that had chosen to remain quiet. But the giant was waking up, and it was very, very angry. Throughout human space, similar scenes were playing out. Vorthani patrol fleets were encountering resistance from colonies they had expected to surrender without a fight. Human merchants were revealing themselves as intelligence operatives with detailed knowledge of alien military installations. Human diplomats were activating networks of contacts that had been built over centuries of careful relationship building. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had not spent 1,000 years becoming weak. They had spent 1,000 years becoming patient, and their patience had finally run out. The emergency session of the Vorthani High Command convened in the deepest bunkers beneath their homeworld's capital. Around the obsidian table sat the greatest military minds of an empire that had conquered star systems for over 2 millennia. Today they were struggling to understand how a farming colony had destroyed an entire battle group. Emperor Zixthanor himself presided over the meeting, his massive form radiating the fury that had made him legendary across the galaxy. His 4 arms gestured angrily as he spoke. "Explain to me," he rumbled, "how Commander Vexthal lost 8 ships and 3,000 soldiers to human farmers." General Kethvar, head of Vorthani intelligence, shifted uncomfortably. "Your Majesty, our initial assessments appear to have been incomplete." "Incomplete?" The Emperor's voice could have shattered stone. "You told me humans were primitive. You said their colonies were defenseless. You assured me they would surrender without resistance." "Sir, our intelligence indicated exactly that," Kethvar protested. "Every scan, every report, every observation confirmed that human settlements lacked significant military capability." "Then how did they destroy our ships?" Before Kethvar could answer, Admiral Morveth spoke up. "Your Majesty, I've reviewed the tactical recordings from the engagement. The human weapons were not consistent with their known technology. They demonstrated capabilities far exceeding anything in our databases." "Are you suggesting," the Emperor asked dangerously, "that humans have been hiding advanced technology from us?" "Sir," Admiral Morveth continued carefully, "I'm suggesting that our understanding of human capabilities may have been deliberately influenced. Every piece of intelligence we have about their military strength came from sources that humans could have controlled." The implications of this statement hung heavy in the chamber. If humans had been manipulating Vorthani intelligence for years or decades, then everything they knew about human weakness might be false. "Send the First Armada," Emperor Zixthanor commanded. "I want Earth itself brought under direct control. If the humans want to play games with us, they will learn the price of deceiving the Vorthani Empire." The First Armada was the pride of Vorthani military power, 500 ships of the line, carrying enough firepower to reduce planets to asteroid fields. They had been used to end rebellions that threatened the Empire's stability. No force in the galaxy had ever withstood their combined assault. 3 days later, the Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Corvinthai commanded the fleet from the dreadnought Eternal Conquest, a ship larger than most space stations. Around him stretched the greatest collection of military might ever assembled by the Vorthani Empire. Sensor report, Admiral Corvinthai ordered as his ships took up battle formation. Sir, we're detecting minimal activity in the inner system. Several small craft moving between the planets, but nothing that appears to be a military fleet. No significant energy signatures from defensive installations. The Admiral studied the tactical display showing Sol system. Earth appeared exactly as intelligence had described it. A lightly defended world with primitive orbital installations and a tiny space fleet. Even Luna, the planet's moon, showed nothing more threatening than communication arrays and research stations. Communications open a channel to Earth. The main screen filled with the image of an elderly human woman sitting behind a simple desk. She appeared completely calm despite the fact that 500 warships had just entered her system. Vorthani, fleet, she said before Admiral Corvinthai could speak. This is Director Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Corps. You are in violation of multiple interstellar treaties by entering our space with hostile intent. Human, Corvinthai replied with contempt. I am Admiral Corvinthai of the Vorthani First Armada. You will surrender immediately and submit to occupation, or we will reduce your world to rubble. Chen smiled, and Admiral Corvinthai felt an unexpected chill. There was something in that expression that did not match the helpless human he had expected to face. Admiral, Chen said quietly, you should know that we've been monitoring your approach for some time. We're quite familiar with Vorthani military doctrine and the capabilities of your ships. Then you understand that resistance is futile. On the contrary, Chen replied, I understand that you have no idea what you're facing, but you're about to learn. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Corvinthai staring at a blank screen. He turned to his tactical officer. Begin the assault. Target their orbital installations first, then move to population centers. Show them the price of defying the Vorthani Empire. Sir, the sensor operator called out, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. From where? Sir, from everywhere. The asteroid belt, the outer planets, even empty space. I'm reading power signatures that shouldn't be possible. Admiral Corvinthai was about to demand clarification when Luna cracked open like an egg. What had appeared to be Earth's natural satellite was revealed as something else entirely. The rocky exterior split apart to show a hollow interior filled with structures that defied imagination. Weapons systems the size of city blocks rotated toward the Vorthani fleet, their targeting arrays locking onto individual ships. By the void, someone whispered on the bridge, it's artificial. But Luna was not the only surprise. Throughout the Sol system, objects that had appeared to be asteroids, derelict ships, or natural phenomena were revealing their true nature. Weapons platforms disguised as space debris powered up with energy signatures that made the Vorthani dreadnoughts look like patrol boats. Sir, the communications officer reported, his voice shaking, we're receiving targeting locks from over 3,000 separate systems. Admiral Corvinthai stared at his tactical display as it filled with hostile contacts. The Sol system had been transformed into a fortress on a scale he had never imagined possible. Every asteroid, every piece of space debris, every seemingly innocent installation was actually part of a defensive network that dwarfed his entire armada. Impossible, he breathed. This level of construction would take millions of years. Admiral, came Director Chen's voice over the communication system. You're looking at the results of 1,000 years of preparation. Every day your people mocked us we were building. Every treaty that restricted our military we were planning around. Every insult your diplomats delivered we were using as motivation. The first weapons discharge came from Luna's primary battery, a beam of coherent energy that turned space itself bright white struck the Eternal Conquest flagship escort. The massive cruiser simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered across several light minutes of space. All ships evasive action, Admiral Corvinthai shouted, but there was nowhere to run. The Vorthani fleet was surrounded by weapons platforms, hidden throughout the system. each one capable of destroying his largest ships with single shots. "Admiral," Director Chen continued as Vorthani ships began dying around him, "you asked us to surrender. Instead, let me make you an offer. Leave our system now and some of your ships might survive to tell others what they learned here." "Never," Corvinthai snarled. "The Vorthani Empire does not retreat from primitives." "Then you'll die like primitives," Chen replied. What followed was not a battle, it was a demonstration. The hidden weapons platforms throughout Sol system opened fire, with coordinated precision that spoke of centuries of planning and preparation. Vorthani ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were reduced to expanding clouds of plasma in seconds. The dreadnought Eternal Conquest lasted longer than most, its massive shields and armor providing some protection against the incredible firepower directed at it. But even the pride of the Vorthani fleet could not withstand weapons designed by a species that had spent 1,000 years thinking about how to kill their enemies. Admiral Corvinthai watched his bridge crew die around him as system failures cascaded through the ship. Warning lights painted everything red while alarms screamed their futile warnings. "Sir," his dying tactical officer gasped. "The humans. They're not targeting our weapons or engines. They're targeting life support." Corvinthai realized with horror that the humans were not trying to capture Vorthani ships. They were not interested in prisoners or salvage. They were methodically killing every Vorthani in the system while leaving their ships intact enough to send a message. "Director Chen," he transmitted, his pride finally broken. I surrender. Please spare my remaining crews." "I'm afraid," Chen's voice came back calm and implacable, "that surrender is not an option. You came here to destroy my homeworld and enslave my species. The appropriate response is complete elimination of the threat. But the laws of war. Admiral, we tried following galactic law for 1,000 years. Your people responded by mocking us and demanding tribute. Now you'll discover what happens when humans stop being polite." The last of the Vorthani First Armada died 23 minutes after entering Sol system. Of the 500 ships that had arrived, not one escaped to carry word of what they had found. The greatest military force ever assembled by the Vorthani Empire had been completely annihilated without destroying a single human installation. But the Sol system had not been the only target of Vorthani aggression that day. Throughout human space, similar demonstrations were taking place. Colonies that had appeared defenseless were revealing themselves as military strongholds. Merchant vessels were transforming into warships. Even individual humans were demonstrating capabilities that contradicted every intelligence report. On day or night, the trade station Nexus 7, a Vorthani patrol demanded that human merchants submit to protective custody. The 3 humans smiled politely and agreed to comply. When the Vorthani soldiers moved to escort them, all 12 armored warriors collapsed simultaneously, their nervous systems shut down by neural disruptors hidden in the humans' clothing. On the mining world Kepler 442, a human geological survey team was ordered to abandon their equipment and report for detention. Instead, the 5-person team revealed that their geological equipment was actually military hardware, capable of precision orbital strikes. The Vorthani garrison found themselves under bombardment from weapons they had never seen before. Across dozens of systems, the same pattern repeated. Humans who had been dismissed as harmless were revealing themselves as highly trained operatives. Technology that had appeared primitive was demonstrating capabilities far beyond anything in galactic databases. But perhaps the most shocking revelation came from the archives themselves. As news of the disasters spread throughout the galaxy, some species began researching their own historical records. What they found in ancient databases contradicted everything they thought they knew about humanity. Deep in the crystalline memory cores of the Etherian collective, researchers discovered files marked with timestamps from over 1,000 years ago. The record spoke of a species from Sol system that had appeared without warning, armed with technology and tactics that had revolutionized galactic warfare. The early records described humans not as peaceful farmers and merchants, but as the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever encountered. They fought with a combination of advanced technology and pure ruthless determination that had allowed them to conquer entire sectors in a matter of decades. According to the ancient files, the Galactic Federation had not been formed to unite peaceful species in harmony. It had been created as an alliance of necessity against the human expansion. Only by combining the resources of dozens of civilizations had the galaxy been able to negotiate a peace treaty with the terrifying newcomers from Sol. The peace treaty itself made fascinating reading. Humans would agree to restrict their military expansion and submit to guidance from more civilized species. In exchange, they would be granted membership in galactic civilization and access to interstellar trade networks. What the galaxy had not realized was that humans had never intended to honor those restrictions permanently. They had simply used the peace treaty to buy time for even more extensive preparations. As the truth spread through interstellar communication networks, panic began to grip the galactic community. If humans had been hiding their true capabilities, for 1,000 years what else had they been preparing? How extensive were their hidden military installations? How many of their peaceful colonists were actually trained soldiers? The answer, as the galaxy was about to discover, was all of them. The Great Assembly of the Galactic Federation had never seen such chaos. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a din of panic that echoed off the crystalline walls. What had started as rumors about human military actions had become confirmed reports of entire fleets vanishing without trace. Chancellor Veltharos of the Mendorian Confederation called for order, his 6 arms waving frantically above his head. As the current leader of the Federation, he was responsible for coordinating a response to what was rapidly becoming the greatest crisis in galactic history. "Delegates, please," he called through the communication system. "We must address this situation with calm and reason." "Calm?" shrieked Ambassador Thies of the Serpentine Worlds. "The Vorthani First Armada has disappeared completely. 500 ships and their crews, gone without sending a single distress signal. The humans did this," declared General Krex of the warrior clans. "Our intelligence networks are reporting coordinated attacks on Vorthani positions throughout their territory. This is clearly a planned military action." "But how?" asked Dr. Zephyria of the Science Consortium. Every analysis of human capability suggested they lacked the technology for such operations. Their weapons were centuries behind our own standards. Chancellor Veltharos gestured for quiet. "I have received reports from our archaeological teams. They have been examining historical records from the early days of galactic civilization. What they found contradicts everything we believed about human nature and capabilities." A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing ancient document fragments and data files. The timestamps indicated they were over 1,000 years old, from the period when humans first made contact with galactic civilization. "According to these records," Veltharos continued, "humans were not the peaceful species we know today. They were described as the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever encountered." Gasps and mutters rippled through the assembly. Several delegates demanded to examine the documents for themselves, while others insisted the records must be fabricated. The files describe human expansion as ruthless and unstoppable. Veltharos read from the ancient texts. They conquered 47 star systems in less than 50 years, using technology and tactics that our ancestors had never seen before. "Impossible," declared Ambassador Zethkar, who had somehow survived the destruction of his species' military forces. "We have observed humans for centuries. They are traders and farmers, not warriors." "The records suggest," Veltharos continued grimly, "that the Galactic Federation was not formed to promote peace and cooperation. It was created as a military alliance specifically to contain human expansion." The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. The very foundation of their civilization had apparently been built on a lie, or at least a deliberate misunderstanding of the truth. The peace treaty signed with humanity included provisions for genetic modification. Veltharos went on. Humans agreed to suppress their aggressive tendencies through biological manipulation in exchange for membership in galactic civilization. Dr. Zephyria's crystalline form pulsed with urgent light patterns. If the genetic suppression could be reversed, then humans might be returning to their original state. That would explain the sudden change in their behavior and capabilities. How many human colonies are there? Asked General Krex, his warrior instincts recognizing the scope of the threat. Over 12,000 settled worlds, replied the Federation's census coordinator, plus mining operations, research stations, and trading posts throughout known space. The total human population exceeds 200 billion individuals. The implication struck the assembly like a physical blow. If humans had been preparing for war while maintaining the appearance of peaceful colonists, then the galaxy faced a military threat on an unprecedented scale. I propose, General Krex announced, that we form an immediate military alliance to address this crisis before it spreads further. Every species must contribute their best ships and warriors to a unified force. Agreed, said Chancellor Veltharos. I hereby invoke Emergency Protocol 7. All member species are required to contribute to a unified defense force under Federation command. Within days, the largest military fleet in galactic history began assembling at the Nexus station in neutral space. Ships from dozens of species arrived continuously, their combined firepower dwarfing anything ever seen before. The crystalline entities contributed their energy manipulation vessels. The Gas Cloud Collective brought their planet-sized living ships. Even the mysterious deep dwellers emerged from their hidden worlds to add their dark matter weapons to the Alliance. Admiral Jextel of the insectoid hives was chosen to command the combined fleet. His species had military experience dating back millions of years, and their hive mind coordination made them ideal for managing large-scale operations. From the bridge of the massive command ship Unity of Purpose, he coordinated the arrival of nearly 10 million warships. Status report, Admiral Jextel requested from his tactical coordinator. Sir, we have confirmed participation from 137 species. Total fleet strength is 9.7 million vessels of various classes. Estimated firepower equivalent to 17,000 planet killers. The Admiral's compound, eyes glittered with satisfaction. No force in the galaxy's history had possessed such devastating capability. Whatever humans were planning, they would face the combined might of galactic civilization. Sir, the communications officer announced, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. The main screen filled with the image of Director Sarah Chen, still sitting calmly behind her simple desk. She appeared completely unconcerned by the vast armada assembled against her species. Admiral Jextel, she said politely, I understand. You've gathered quite an impressive fleet. Nearly 10 million ships if our intelligence reports are accurate. Human, Admiral Jextel replied, his voice carrying the authority of the hive mind behind him. You and your species will surrender immediately and submit to containment procedures. Your recent actions constitute acts of war against multiple Federation members. I'm afraid we can't do that, Director Chen responded. You see, Admiral, you've made the same mistake everyone else has made. You're thinking of this as a military conflict between opposing forces. But that's not what this is. Then what would you call it? This, Chen said with that same unsettling smile, is an extermination. Before Admiral Jextel could respond, his tactical displays began screaming warnings. Throughout the assembled fleet, ships were reporting contact with unknown forces. But the contacts were not appearing from outside the fleet's perimeter. They were materializing inside it. Human ships, sleek and deadly, were decloaking among the Allied vessels. They had been hiding in the fleet itself, using stealth technology far beyond anything the galaxy possessed. But these were not the primitive human ships that intelligence files described. These vessels moved with predatory grace, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. Impossible, Admiral Jextel whispered. Our sensors would have detected any approach. Your sensors, Director Chen's voice came through the communication system, detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. We've been studying your technology for 1,000 years, Admiral. We know every frequency you use, every detection method you employ, every weakness in your defensive systems. The human ships began their attack with surgical precision. Instead of engaging in traditional ship-to-ship combat, they targeted specific systems on the Allied vessels. Command centers exploded as focused energy beams found their marks. Communication. Arrays went dark as electromagnetic pulses disabled entire networks. Life support systems failed as nanoscale weapons infiltrated ship hulls. "All ships return fire," Admiral Jextol commanded, but his orders were not reaching most of his fleet. The humans had severed communication links throughout the Armada, turning the unified force into millions of individual ships fighting in isolation. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human vessels are using coordinated pack tactics. They're targeting our command structure first, then systematically destroying our ability to organize a defense." Admiral Jextol watched in horror as his magnificent armada began to collapse. Ships that had conquered star systems were being destroyed by forces they could not properly target or track. The human vessels moved through the Allied fleet like apex predators hunting helpless prey. But the true horror was not the advanced human technology. It was their tactics. Human ships deliberately rammed damaged Allied vessels, their crews laughing as they died in the explosions. Human fighters flew suicide missions that took out targets dozens of times their size. Human commanders broadcast messages of pure psychological warfare designed to break enemy morale. "Admiral," came one transmission from a human ship as it dove into a formation of crystalline entity vessels. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Terran ship Retribution. My crew and I want you to know that we consider dying in battle against your forces to be the greatest honor possible." The ship detonated, its reactor core, taking 7 Allied vessels with it in a ball of nuclear fire. "Sir," Admiral Jextol's communications officer reported, his voice shaking, "we're receiving similar messages from human forces throughout the engagement. They appear to be treating death in combat as preferable to survival." Admiral Jextol had studied military history for centuries, but he had never encountered a species that fought with such complete disregard for self-preservation. Most civilized races valued the lives of their warriors and avoided unnecessary casualties. Humans seemed to view their own deaths as weapons to be used against their enemies. "Admiral," Director Chen's voice came through the chaos, "you're witnessing what happens when you threaten a species that evolved on a death world. Every day of a human's life is a battle for survival against an environment that wants to kill them. We don't fear death, Admiral. We use it." The Alliance fleet, despite its overwhelming numerical superiority, was being systematically dismantled by forces that fought like living nightmares. Human ships that should have been destroyed continued fighting until their hulls cracked open. Human crews that should have surrendered instead found new ways to damage their enemies even as they died. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "we've lost contact with 60% of the fleet. Estimated casualties exceed 4 million ships." "How many human vessels have we destroyed?" "Approximately 12,000, sir." Admiral Jextol's compound eyes widened in disbelief. The humans were trading ship losses at a ratio of 300 to 1 and still winning the engagement. They fought with such ferocity and coordination that superior numbers meant nothing. "All remaining ships," he transmitted on emergency frequencies, "withdraw immediately. Full retreat to Rally Point Omega." But retreat proved impossible. Human forces had surrounded the Allied fleet and were systematically destroying any ship that tried to escape. They moved with pack coordination that suggested some form of shared consciousness, anticipating enemy movements and countering them before they could be executed. "Admiral," came one final transmission from Director Chen, "before you die, I want you to understand something. This fleet you assembled represents the combined military might of galactic civilization. You brought 10 million ships to fight us." Admiral Jextol said nothing, watching as his command ship systems failed around him. "We brought 12,000 ships to fight you," Chen continued. "And we're winning. That should tell you everything you need to know about the difference between our species and yours." The unity of purpose shuddered as human weapons found their mark. Admiral Jextol felt the deck plating buckle beneath his feet as the massive command ship began breaking apart. "When you meet your ancestors," Director Chen's voice followed him into death, "tell them that humanity tried to be peaceful. Tell them we tried to follow galactic law and live as civilized beings. Tell them that your species chose war instead. The greatest military fleet in galactic history died in the space between stars, their wreckage scattered across light years of empty space. Of the nearly 10 million ships that had assembled to contain the human threat, Fewer than 1,000 escaped to carry word of the disaster back to their homeworlds. The galaxy had learned that humans were no longer hiding their true nature. They had also learned that 1,000 years of preparation had made humanity into something far more dangerous than their ancestors had ever imagined. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it was very, very hungry. The aftermath of the Battle of Nexus Station sent shockwaves across the galaxy that no amount of government censorship could contain. The greatest military fleet ever assembled had been annihilated by a force 1% its size. Survivors spoke, in whispers of human ships that fought like demons, crews that laughed as they died, and tactics that defied every principle of civilized warfare. On Vorthani Prime, Emperor Zixthanor sat alone in his throne room, staring at reports that made no sense. His first armada had vanished completely. His colonial forces had been systematically eliminated. His intelligence networks had been revealed as completely compromised by human operatives who had spent decades building false identities. Your Majesty, General Kethavar entered the chamber hesitantly. We've received communications from several neutral systems. They're reporting human fleets moving through their space. Human fleets? The Emperor asked, his voice hollow. Sir, our sensors detect no ships, but the reports are consistent. Entire human armadas appearing without warning, delivering messages, then vanishing again. They appear to be using stealth technology that makes them completely invisible to our detection methods. Emperor Zixthanor closed his eyes. His empire had built its power on military superiority and the fear it generated. If humans could move fleets through Vorthani space undetected, then that power was an illusion. What do these messages say? General Kethavar consulted his datapad with trembling hands. They're invitations, Your Majesty. The humans are requesting meetings with government leaders throughout the galaxy. Invitations? Sir, they're being very polite about it. But the implication is clear. Any species that refuses to meet with human representatives will be considered hostile. Light years away, on the crystal world of the Etherian Collective, similar conversations were taking place. The energy beings who had ruled their sector for millennia found themselves facing a reality they had never imagined. They were no longer the dominant power in their own space. Archon Luxandra received the human message while coordinating refugee efforts from the destroyed Alliance fleet. Her crystalline form pulsed with confusion as she processed the transmission. Honored Archon, the human message began. This is Admiral Lisa Park of the Terran Defense Corps. We request a meeting to discuss the future relationship between our species. The message was polite, respectful, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. Humans were not demanding surrender or offering terms of conquest. They were treating the Etherian Collective as equals worthy of negotiation, which meant they believed they had already won. On Earth, Director Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked human fleet, positions, and there were thousands of them. For 1,000 years, humanity had been building ships, training crews, and positioning forces throughout known space. What the galaxy had seen as peaceful expansion had actually been the largest military deployment in galactic history. Status report, Chen requested from Admiral Park, whose image appeared beside the galactic display. All fleet elements are in position, Admiral Park reported. We have surveillance coverage of every major world and military installation in the galaxy. Our stealth reconnaissance has mapped defensive positions, government centers, and industrial capabilities for all major species. Casualties? Minimal on our side. The engagement at Nexus Station cost us 12,000 ships and their crews, but our force projection capabilities remain at full strength. Enemy casualties are estimated at 9.6 million vessels destroyed or disabled. Chen nodded grimly. Every human ship lost represented families who would never see their loved ones again, but those crews had died ensuring that humanity would never again be dismissed as weak or helpless. Dr. Tanaka, Chen turned to address the head of advanced research. What is the status of genetic reversion? Complete, Dr. Tanaka replied. The last of the suppression treatments has been purged from the human population. Our species has returned to baseline genetic parameters for the first time in over 1,000 years. This was perhaps the most significant development of all. For centuries, humans had accepted genetic modification that dampened their territorial instincts, reduced their capacity for violence, and made them more suitable for peaceful coexistence. The galaxy had demanded these changes as a condition of membership in galactic civilization. Now, with the suppression removed, humanity was returning to its natural state. They were becoming, once again, the species that had fought their way off a death world and conquered half the galaxy before agreeing to peace. "Intelligence reports?" Chen asked. Colonel Morrison stepped forward. "Our operatives throughout alien space have confirmed their positions and are awaiting activation. We have assets in place within every major government, military organization, and industrial complex. When the time comes, we can cripple enemy coordination from within." "And the archaeological evidence?" "Broadcasting on all frequencies," Colonel Morrison confirmed. "The historical records are being disseminated throughout the galaxy. Every species is learning the truth about humanity's past and the real reason the Galactic Federation was formed." Chen studied the galactic display, watching as status reports came in from human forces positioned throughout known space. After 1,000 years of preparation, humanity was finally ready to reclaim their position as the galaxy's dominant species. "Communications," she ordered. "Open channels to all major governments. It's time to remind the galaxy why they used to fear us." Across the galaxy, the same scene played out in government centers and military headquarters. Screens flickered to life, showing Director Sarah Chen sitting calmly behind her simple desk, her expression serene and utterly confident. "Leaders of galactic civilization," she began. "I am Director Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Corps. You know me as the representative of a weak species that has contributed little to galactic society. Today, you will learn who we really are." On Vorthani Prime, Emperor Zixthanor watched with growing horror as Chen continued. 1,000 years ago, humanity emerged from the Sol system and began expanding across the galaxy. We conquered 47 star systems in 50 years using technology and tactics that revolutionized galactic warfare. We were not merchants or farmers. We were apex predators from a death world, and we were very good at what we did. On the Etherian homeworld, Archon Luxandra pulsed with understanding as the truth became clear. The Galactic Federation was not formed to promote peace, Chen continued. It was created as a military alliance to contain human expansion. Our species was so dangerous that the entire galaxy had to unite against us. The peace treaty you celebrated was actually a surrender document that restricted our military growth in exchange for access to interstellar trade. Throughout the galaxy, government leaders realized they had been living a lie. The peaceful humans they had mocked and dismissed were actually the most dangerous military force in galactic history, temporarily restrained by treaty obligations they had now chosen to abandon. "But you made a critical mistake," Chen said, her voice carrying across light years to reach every inhabited world. "You believed that genetic suppression had made us permanently peaceful. You thought that 1,000 years of following galactic law had made us civilized. You confused restraint with weakness." The holographic display behind Chen changed to show human fleet positions throughout the galaxy. The red dots were everywhere, surrounding every major world and controlling every important trade route. "We used that 1,000 years to prepare," Chen explained. "While you mocked our primitive ships, we were building fleets that make your technology look like children's toys. While you dismissed our colonists as harmless farmers, we were training the largest military force in galactic history. While you believed our diplomats were simple traders, we were mapping every weakness in your defenses." Emperor Zixthanor felt his empire crumbling around him as he realized the scope of human preparation. Every Vorthani military secret had been compromised. Every defensive position had been studied. Every government official had been identified and assessed. "The recent conflicts were not battles," Chen continued. "They were demonstrations. We wanted you to understand that the balance of power has changed. Humanity is no longer the weak species. You remembered. We have become something far more dangerous." The transmission paused. allowing the implications to sink in across the galaxy. However, Chen resumed, we are not interested in conquest for its own sake. We do not wish to rule other species or destroy galactic civilization. What we want is respect. What we demand is equality. What we will accept is nothing less than our rightful place as the galaxy's dominant military power. On the crystal world of the Etherian Collective, Archon Luxandra realized she was listening to terms of surrender disguised as a diplomatic overture. Each species will have the opportunity to negotiate new treaties with humanity, Chen explained. These agreements will recognize human military superiority while maintaining your sovereignty over internal affairs. In exchange, you will receive our protection from external threats and access to human technology. The offer was not really an offer. It was a choice between submission and extinction. Those species that choose to honor these new treaties will find humanity to be generous allies. We will share our advances in medicine, technology, and science. We will defend your worlds from aggression. We will treat you with the dignity and respect that civilized beings deserve. Those who refuse, Chen's voice turned cold, will discover why the galaxy once united against us. You have seen what happened to the Vorthani Empire and the Alliance fleet. That was us being gentle. The transmission ended, leaving leaders throughout the galaxy to contemplate their options. They could submit to human dominance and hope for merciful treatment, or they could fight and face the full might of a species that viewed death as just another weapon. On Earth, Director Chen turned away from the communication array and walked to the observation deck of her underground facility. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the Rocky Mountains stretching to the horizon under a clear blue sky. Do you think they'll accept the terms? Admiral Park asked, joining her at the window. Some will, Chen replied. Others will choose to fight. The proud species, the warrior cultures, the ones who built their identity on military supremacy. They'll refuse to acknowledge human dominance. And then, Chen's expression hardened, and for a moment, Admiral Park could see the predator lurking beneath her civilized exterior. Then they'll learn why evolution made us the way we are. They'll discover what happens when you threaten a species that crawled out of a gravity well by stepping on the bones of everything that tried to stop them. The galaxy had spent 1,000 years mocking Earth, treating humanity as a joke and demanding tribute from a species they considered helpless. They had forgotten the old stories, dismissed the ancient warnings, and convinced themselves that humans had evolved beyond their violent nature. Now they would remember. Now they would understand why their ancestors had been so afraid. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it was hungry for the respect it had been denied. Humanity had tried to be the species the galaxy wanted them to be. They had followed the rules, accepted the insults, and lived as peaceful members of galactic civilization. Now the galaxy would deal with the species humanity had always been, apex predators from a death world, temporarily tamed but never truly domesticated. The mask had finally slipped, and there was no going back. The age of human dominance had begun. The alarm blared through Earth Defense Headquarters at exactly 3:27 a.m. Earth Standard Time. Admiral James Wilson had been asleep for barely 2 hours when his comm unit flashed red. He was fully awake in seconds, years of military training kicking. What's the situation?" he asked, his voice clear despite the early hour. "Sir," said the night officer, "deep space monitors have detected something big. Multiple objects approaching from beyond Neptune's orbit. Moving fast." Wilson dressed quickly and hurried to the command center. The large screen showed dots of light moving in perfect formation toward Earth. Not asteroids, not comets. Too organized, too purposeful. "How many?" Wilson asked. Lieutenant Parker, the sensor specialist, looked up from her screen. Her face was pale. "Over 300 large vessels, sir. Each one bigger than our largest ship, and thousands of smaller craft." Wilson felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had developed space travel over the past century, establishing bases on the Moon and Mars. They had even sent explorers to the moons of Jupiter, but they had never encountered alien life. Until now. "Alert all Earth governments," Wilson ordered, "and get me Captain Reed on the line." Captain Alex Reed was testing the new engines on the EDS Defender, Earth's most advanced space vessel, when the call came in. The ship's AI spoke with its calm, even voice. "Captain, priority communication from Admiral Wilson." Reed sighed. "The engine tests were going well and interruptions always caused problems. Put him through." The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. Reed could tell immediately something was wrong. Very wrong. "Captain Reed, return to Earth immediately. We have a Level 1 situation." Reed had never heard of a Level 1 situation before. The highest emergency level used until now had been Level 3, during the Mars colony crisis. "What's happening, sir?" "We'll brief you upon arrival. Suffice to say, we may be facing first contact, and they're coming with an armada." Dr. Kate Miller had been watching the stars through the Global Observatory telescope when she first noticed the anomaly. Strange energy signatures, unlike anything recorded before. She had called her colleague, Dr. Tom Fletcher, immediately. "Tom, look at these readings," she said, pointing to her screen. "These energy patterns don't match anything in our database." Tom studied the data with growing concern. "Whatever these are, they're producing more energy than our entire planet. And look at their trajectory, they're heading straight for us." Kate nodded. "I've already sent the data to Defense Headquarters. But there's something else." She pulled up another screen showing wavelength analyses. "These energy signatures aren't just powerful. They're organized. Complex patterns repeating in sequences that suggest intelligence," Tom finished her thought. "Deliberate communication." "Yes," Kate said quietly. "They're talking to each other." Within 12 hours, the entire planet knew. The news spread across every network, every country, every language.
Alien ships were approaching Earth. The response varied from panic to celebration, from religious fervor to scientific excitement. Some people fled to bunkers, others gathered on rooftops, hoping for a glimpse of the visitors. At the United Earth
Security Council, Admiral Wilson delivered his report to the assembled leaders. The fleet will reach Earth orbit in approximately 72 hours. Their current speed suggests they could arrive sooner if they wished, but they appear to be deliberately slowing down. "Have they responded to our communication attempts?" asked the Council President. Wilson shook his head. "No, Madam President. We've tried all frequencies, all known mathematical sequences, even basic binary code. They maintain complete silence." "What are our defensive options?" the Russian representative asked. Wilson displayed a holographic comparison of Earth's fleet against the approaching armada. Earth's ships looked like toys next to the massive alien vessels. "Limited at best," Wilson admitted. "Our entire global fleet couldn't stop even a fraction of their ships. We're positioning our defenses, but realistically, if they want to attack, we can't stop them." The room fell silent as the reality sank in. "Then we must hope they come in peace," the Chinese representative said finally. Aboard the EDS Defender, now in orbit around Earth, Captain Reed studied the approaching fleet. Through the ship's advanced telescopes, he could see details of the alien vessels. They were beautiful in a strange way, sleek and curved like giant sea creatures glowing with lights of colors Reed couldn't even name. "Any change in their approach vector?" Reed asked his navigator, Officer Mike Bell. "No, Captain, they're maintaining course directly to Earth. Current estimate puts them in orbit in 68 hours. Reed nodded. The waiting was the hardest part. He'd rather face a known danger than sit idle while an unknown threat approached. His communications officer turned suddenly. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's Dr. Miller from the Global Observatory." Kate's face appeared, on screen. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Captain Reed, we've been analyzing the energy signatures from the alien fleet, and we've discovered something important." "Go ahead, Doctor." "Their ships are powered by something similar to our theoretical warp drives, but far more advanced. The energy output suggests they could have reached Earth days ago if they wanted to. They're deliberately taking their time." Reed considered this. "They want us to see them coming. They're making a show of force." "Perhaps," Kate agreed. "But there's more. We've detected energy surges between their ships consistent with massive data transfers. They're communicating constantly, sharing huge amounts of information." "About us?" Reed asked. "Possibly. But here's the strange part. Some of the data patterns match astronomical records from billions of years ago. It's as if they're comparing notes about Earth's entire history. Reed felt unease growing in his stomach. Why would advanced aliens care about Earth's ancient past? One more thing, Captain, Kate continued. The leading ship is different from the others. Much older, based on the energy signature, and it's giving off readings that match certain artifacts we've discovered in deep archaeological sites. The ones some fringe scientists claimed were of extraterrestrial origin. You're saying they've been here before? Reed asked. I'm saying it's possible, a very long time ago. As Reed contemplated this disturbing possibility, the ship's AI interrupted. Captain, sensors detect increased activity from the alien fleet. They're accelerating. Reed looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an armada was coming for Earth. An armada that might have visited before in Earth's distant past. Alert. Admiral Wilson, Reed ordered. Tell him they're coming faster now. The countdown to first contact had begun, and humanity had no idea what awaited them. The alien armada arrived sooner than expected. One moment, Earth's skies were normal. The next, massive shadows darkened cities across the globe as hundreds of enormous ships slid into orbit. The largest ship, at least 5 miles long, positioned itself directly above the United Nations headquarters in New York. Despite their sudden arrival, the aliens made no aggressive moves. They simply hung in the sky, silent and waiting. Captain Reed stood on the bridge of the EDS Defender, watching the alien vessels through the view screen. The closest ship dwarfed his vessel like a whale next to a minnow. Any weapon signatures? Reed asked his tactical officer. None that we can detect, Captain, but their hulls are blocking most of our scans. They could have entire arsenals in there and we wouldn't know. Admiral Wilson's voice came through the comm system. Captain, Reed, we're gathering an emergency meeting at UN headquarters. The aliens have finally sent a message. They want to talk. The meeting room at the UN was packed with world leaders, military officers, and scientists. Dr. Miller and Dr. Fletcher sat near the back, their equipment ready to analyze any communications. Captain Reed stood with Admiral Wilson near the main screen. The President of the United Earth Council stepped forward. Are we ready to receive their transmission? A tech nodded. Yes, Madam President, channel open. The large screen at the front of the room flickered, then filled with an image that made several people gasp. The alien had a humanoid shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But that's where the similarities ended. Its skin was a deep blue with patches of luminescent silver. Its face had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and what appeared to be breathing slits instead of a nose. When it spoke, its mouth didn't move. Instead, the voice seemed to come from somewhere in its chest. People of Earth, the alien said in perfect English. I am Grand Admiral Vox of the Galactic Federation. We apologize for the delay in communication. We needed time to analyze your languages. The room was silent, everyone too stunned to speak. Finally, the President found her voice. We welcome you to Earth, Grand Admiral. May I ask why you have come with such a large fleet? The alien's upper eyes blinked slowly. I regret that our purpose is not one you will welcome. We have come to delete Earth. Murmurs of shock and fear spread through the room. Delete? What do you mean by delete? The President asked, her voice shaking slightly. Your planet's existence is an administrative error, Vox explained, his tone matter-of-fact. According to the Cosmic Registry, Earth was scheduled for deletion 65 million years ago. A clerical oversight allowed your planet to continue existing when it should have been removed. Dr. Fletcher whispered to Dr. Miller, 65 million years. That's when the dinosaurs were wiped out. We are simply here to complete the process, Vox continued. The deletion will be quick and painless. All life forms will be transferred to the universal consciousness before planetary disintegration. Admiral Wilson stepped forward. And if we refuse to be deleted? The alien's silver patches pulsed softly. Refusal is not an option. The Cosmic Registry's decisions are final. We are merely the executors. Back aboard the EDS Defender, Captain Reed paced the bridge. The meeting had ended in chaos, with Earth's leaders desperately trying to negotiate while the alien admiral remained unmoved. Reed had been ordered to prepare for a possible defensive strike, even though everyone knew it would be futile. "Captain," his communications officer called. "We're being hailed by one of the alien ships, not the flagship." Reed frowned. "Put it through." A different alien appeared on screen. This one had darker blue skin with gold markings around its eyes. "Captain Reed, I am Commander Trell, second in command of this fleet. I wish to speak with you privately." Reed hesitated, then nodded. "My ready room. Now." In his private office, Reed faced the alien on screen. "What do you want, Commander?" "Not all of us agree with this deletion order," Trell said, voice low. "Some of us believe the registry's records may be incomplete." Reed leaned forward. "Go on." "The registry's decision to delete Earth was based on an assessment made millions of your years ago. It did not account for the rise of human civilization." "You're saying we might have a chance to appeal?" Trell's four eyes blinked in sequence. "Perhaps. But Grand Admiral Vox follows orders without question. He will not delay the deletion without direct instructions from higher authorities." "How do we reach these higher authorities?" "You don't," Trell said. "But I might help you access the registry archives aboard our flagship. If you can find evidence that the deletion order should be reviewed, it would trigger an automatic stay of execution." Reed considered the offer. It could be a trap. But what choice did they have? "What do you need from me?" Reed asked. "I will arrange for you and a small team to be granted access to our ship. Bring your scientists, especially the ones who discovered our energy signatures." Dr. Miller couldn't believe she was about to board an alien spacecraft. She stood with Dr. Fletcher and Captain Reed in the Defender's airlock waiting for transport. "Why would this Commander Trell help us?" Fletcher asked nervously. Reed checked his hidden communicator. "He claims some of the aliens have been studying Earth for decades. They've become attached to our planet." "Alien admirers," Miller said with a slight smile. "Never thought that would be our hope for survival." A soft hum filled the airlock, and the three humans found themselves enveloped in golden light. When the light faded, they were standing in a vast chamber with curved walls that seemed to shift colors slowly. Commander Trell stood before them, taller than any human. "Welcome aboard," Trell said. "We must move quickly. Grand Admiral Vox has scheduled the deletion to begin in 72 Earth hours." "3 days to save the world," Fletcher whispered. Trell led them through corridors that seemed to breathe and pulse with light. Other aliens they passed stared at the humans with varying expressions, some curious, others hostile. "The archives are in the central core," Trell explained. "I can grant you access, but you must search for yourselves. If I were to directly help you find information against the deletion order, I would be committing treason." They entered a massive spherical room filled with floating symbols and images that moved and rearranged themselves constantly. "This is the Knowledge Center," Trell said. "It contains copies of the registry's records for this sector of the galaxy. The interface responds to thought. Simply focus on what you seek." Dr. Miller stepped forward, amazed. "We need to find Earth's deletion order, the original reasoning." Symbols swirled around her and rearranged themselves. Images of ancient Earth appeared, oceans teeming with life, giant reptiles walking the land. A document materialized before them, written in alien, symbols that somehow translated themselves in the humans' minds. "Deletion Order 7829B, Miller read aloud. "Planet designation, Earth. Reason for deletion." She gasped. "What is it?" Reed asked urgently. Miller looked up at her companions, her face pale. "It says Earth was scheduled for deletion because we were an experiment that was no longer needed. An experiment created by beings even more powerful than the Galactic Federation." Trell's body stiffened. "This is more serious than I thought. We need to find out what experiment they mean, and why it might still be relevant today." The clock was ticking. Somewhere above them, Grand Admiral Vox was preparing to erase Earth from existence. Back on Earth, chaos reigned. The news of the deletion order had leaked to the public. Some people rioted in the streets. Others gathered in churches, temples, and mosques to pray. Many families simply huddled together at home, watching the massive ships through their windows. In the United Nations Emergency Chamber, Admiral Wilson addressed the assembled world leaders. "We have 70 hours until the aliens begin their deletion process," he said grimly. "Our military options are limited. Their technology is far beyond ours. So we surrender? We just accept extinction?" The Russian president pounded his fist on the table. "No," Wilson replied. "Captain Reed and a small team are aboard the alien flagship now, looking for a loophole, a way to appeal this deletion order." "And if they fail?" asked the Chinese premier. Wilson's face hardened. "Then we fight anyway. We show these aliens that humans don't go quietly." The room fell silent as the monitors displayed Earth's combined military forces, every ship, plane, and weapon on the planet, compared to the alien armada. It wasn't even close. "There might be another option," said a quiet voice from the back. Everyone turned to see Professor Jack Howard, Earth's leading expert on communication theory. "The aliens mentioned a cosmic registry that makes these decisions," Howard continued. "Perhaps we can appeal directly to them, show them what they'd be losing by deleting Earth." "How?" Wilson asked. "We gather everything that makes humanity special, our art, music, literature, scientific discoveries. We broadcast it all on every frequency in every direction. We show the universe what we're worth." The Brazilian president nodded slowly. "A cosmic plea for mercy. It's worth trying." "While Captain Reed searches for a legal loophole," Wilson agreed, "we'll prepare humanity's case for existence." Aboard, the alien flagship Reed, Miller, and Fletcher were still in the Knowledge Center, surrounded by swirling data about Earth's history. Commander Trell stood guard at the entrance, occasionally checking for approaching officers. "Look at this," Miller said, pointing to a holographic display. "According to their records, Earth wasn't just any experiment. It was a diversity incubator, a planet specifically designed to evolve many different types of life." Fletcher adjusted his glasses as he studied another section of data. "The beings that created Earth, they're called the Seeders here. They apparently did this with many planets, but most were shut down after they reached a certain stage." Reed frowned. "Why?" "It doesn't say exactly," Fletcher replied. "But there's something about dangerous potential and unpredictable outcomes." Miller's eyes widened as a new set of data appeared before her. "Wait. According to this, most planets only evolved one dominant intelligent species. Earth was unusual because it had the potential for several intelligent species?" Reed asked. "But humans are the only ones." "Now, yes," Miller said. "But think about it. Neanderthals existed alongside humans for thousands of years, and there's evidence that other early human species lived at the same time." Trell moved closer, his four eyes blinking rapidly. "This is significant. The registry typically classifies planets by their dominant species. If Earth was designed to support multiple intelligent species, that would place it in a protected category. But we don't have multiple intelligent species now," Fletcher pointed out. "What about dolphins? Great apes? They show signs of advanced intelligence," Miller suggested. "Not enough," Trell said. "The registry requires language, tool use, and abstract thinking at minimum." Reed paced the floor, thinking hard. "What if we could prove humans themselves represent diversity? That we're not just one monolithic species, but incredibly varied in our cultures, languages, and ways of thinking?" Trell considered this. "It's not a standard classification, but it might trigger a review. We need more data about human diversity." On the EDS Defender, Officer Mike Bell received an encrypted message from Captain Reed. The captain needed data, massive amounts of data about human cultural and genetic diversity, examples of different languages, art forms, problem-solving, approaches. Bell turned to the communications officer. "Contact Earth. Tell them to send everything they can about what makes humans different from each other, but also what unites us. And tell them to hurry." All across Earth, people worked frantically. To compile humanity's case for survival, museums digitized their collections. Libraries sent their most important works. Scientists contributed research showing human genetic diversity. Linguists submitted examples of Earth's 7,000 languages. At the Global Observatory, a team worked to boost Earth's transmission capacity, building enormous new antennas to send all this data to the alien fleet. Admiral Wilson supervised the military's contribution, not weapons, but evidence of human courage, sacrifice, and honor from throughout history. Stories of soldiers who died saving others, of enemies who became friends, of people who stood up against impossible odds. Will it be enough? Asked his aide. Wilson watched as the data streamed toward the alien ships. It has to be. In his command chamber, Grand Admiral Vox received a report from his security officer. The humans are broadcasting massive data transmissions to our fleet, the officer said. Ignore them, Vox replied. Their pleas are irrelevant. The registry's decision is final. Sir, there's something else. Commander Trell has granted 3 humans access to the Knowledge Center. Vox's luminescent patches flared bright silver, a sign of anger in his species. Bring them to me immediately, all 4 of them. Reed, Miller, and Fletcher worked frantically in the Knowledge Center, feeding human diversity data into the alien system, searching for anything that might trigger a review of the deletion order. Look at this, Fletcher said suddenly. There's a subsection about unique evolutionary traits. If a species shows abilities not seen elsewhere in the galaxy, they can be classified as an exceptional development case. What abilities would qualify? Reed asked. Miller was scanning through the criteria. Unusual adaptability, accelerated cultural evolution, unique problem-solving approaches. That's us, Fletcher exclaimed. Humans went from basic tools to space travel in an evolutionary blink of an eye. Our rate of technological development is exponential compared to most species. Reed felt a flicker of hope. Can we use that to trigger a review? Before Trell could answer, the doors to the Knowledge Center slid open. 6 alien guards entered, weapons ready. Commander Trell, the lead guard announced. You and the humans are ordered to appear before Grand Admiral Vox. Immediately, Trell's body stiffened. On what charge? Interference with a registry deletion order. The penalty is severe, Commander. As they were led away, Reed whispered to Miller and Fletcher, keep looking for that loophole. This isn't over yet. The time, left until Earth's scheduled deletion, had dropped to 54 hours. Grand Admiral Vox's command chamber was vast and dimly lit. The walls seemed to shift and move, displaying star systems and galaxies that floated by like silent ghosts. Vox himself sat on a raised platform, his blue skin almost black in the low light, silver patches pulsing slowly. Captain Reed, Dr. Miller, Dr. Fletcher, and Commander Trell stood before him, surrounded by guards. Commander Trell, Vox's voice resonated from his chest. You have violated direct orders. Helping these humans search for exemptions is forbidden. Trell stood tall, all 4 eyes focused on his superior. Admiral, I believe the deletion order contains irregularities that require review. The registry does not make mistakes, Vox replied coldly. With respect, sir, Reed interrupted. We've found evidence that Earth was designed as a diversity incubator. According to your own records, such planets have special protection. Vox's upper eyes narrowed. Even if that were true, your planet failed its purpose. You have only 1 intelligent species, not multiple as required. That's not entirely accurate. Dr. Miller stepped forward. Humans represent diversity within a single species that may be unique in the galaxy. We have thousands of cultures, languages, belief systems, and problem-solving approaches. Irrelevant. Vox dismissed her with a wave. The criteria are specific. Dr. Fletcher, who had been quietly studying the moving images on the walls, suddenly spoke. What about Section 7, Paragraph 9 of the Registry Code? The room fell silent. Even the guards turned to look at the human scientist. What did you say? Vox asked, his voice softer but somehow more dangerous. I saw it in the Knowledge Center, Fletcher continued, heart racing but voice steady. Section 7, paragraph 9 states that any species demonstrating exceptional evolutionary traits qualifies for automatic review before deletion. Vox rose from his seat, towering over the humans. You read the registry code? That information is restricted. The Knowledge Center translated it for us, Reed explained. And according to that code, humans qualify for review. Our rate of technological and cultural development is extraordinarily fast compared to galactic standards. Commander Trell nodded. It's true, Admiral. In just a few thousand years, humans went from stone tools to space exploration. The registry classifies such development as exceptional. Vox's silver patches flashed rapidly, a sign of agitation. This changes nothing. The deletion will proceed as scheduled. Then you'll be violating the registry's own laws, Reed challenged. Before Vox could respond, a junior officer rushed into the chamber. Admiral, urgent message from Central Command. The registry has detected an unusual data surge from Earth. They're requesting information. Vox froze. The registry itself was taking notice. This was unexpected. What kind of data surge? He demanded. The humans are broadcasting everything, sir. Their art, music, science, history, all directed toward the nearest registry relay station. Dr. Miller couldn't help but smile. Earth was fighting back in its own way. A delay of 24 hours, Vox finally said. The deletion is postponed for one Earth day while we assess these claims. No more. As guards led them away, Reed whispered to his companions, We've bought some time. Now we need to find that loophole. Back on Earth, Admiral Wilson received the news of the temporary delay with mixed feelings. It was better than nothing, but far from a solution. 24 hours, he told the United Nations Emergency Council. That's all Reed and his team managed to get us. Then we make every second count, said Professor Howard. Our transmission to the registry needs to be stronger, clearer. We need to show not just our diversity, but our potential. The Brazilian president nodded. What if we use the global satellite network to create one massive transmitter? Possible, said the Chinese premier, but it would overload most of our systems. Do it anyway, Wilson ordered. Better to burn out our satellites than lose the whole planet. On the alien flagship, Reed and his team were confined to guest quarters, luxurious but clearly a prison. Commander Trell had been taken elsewhere, presumably to face discipline. Fletcher, Reed said quietly, what exactly did you see in that registry code? Was there really a Section 7, Paragraph 9? Fletcher smiled. Not that I know of, but I noticed Vox and the other aliens have a near religious reverence for the registry. I gambled that he wouldn't admit to not knowing a section of their sacred code. Miller laughed softly. Brilliant bluff. But we still need to find a real loophole. Reed paced the room, thinking. Trell mentioned that unique problem-solving might qualify us as exceptional. What's more unique than bluffing a superior alien race? That's it, Miller said suddenly. Human creativity. Our ability to imagine things that don't exist yet. What if that's our unique trait? Fletcher nodded excitedly. Most advanced species in their records probably evolved through logical, predictable patterns. But humans make intuitive leaps, create art, tell stories. We need to prove it, Reed said. And we need to get message to Earth about what to focus on in their transmission. Miller examined the room carefully. These aliens use thought-responsive technology. Maybe we can... She closed her eyes and concentrated on the wall, imagining it becoming transparent. Nothing happened. Then she tried picturing a communication panel. Slowly, a section of the wall began to glow. It worked, she whispered. Reed stepped forward. Now we just need to reach the defender without alerting the aliens. Officer Mike Bell was monitoring communications when a strange signal came through. Weak and distorted, but definitely from Captain Reed. The message was brief, but clear. Focus transmission on human creativity. Imagination is the key. All art, fiction, music, theoretical science, anything that shows we can envision what doesn't exist yet. Bell immediately relayed the message to Admiral Wilson, who ordered a change in the content being broadcast to the registry. Every novel, painting, song and scientific theory humanity had ever produced began flowing into space. In his chamber, Grand Admiral Vox received increasingly concerned reports. The registry had never seen a species respond like this. The data surge from Earth had increased tenfold, and now it contained something the aliens found difficult to categorize: fiction. Stories about things that never happened, art depicting scenes that didn't exist, music expressing emotions in abstract form. "Sir," his science officer reported, "we've analyzed human creative output. They spend significant resources creating and consuming imaginary scenarios. It appears to be central to their development." "What purpose does this serve?" Vox demanded. "Unknown, sir, but their technological innovations often appear in their fiction before becoming reality. They imagine things before building them." For the first time in his long career, Vox felt uncertain. This was not in the protocols. The registry valued logic, order, predictability. Human imagination was chaotic, boundless. "Sir," another officer interrupted, "the registry has sent a preliminary response. They're ordering a full review of Earth's status." Vox's four eyes widened in shock. A full review hadn't been granted to any planet in over 10 million years. Meanwhile, Reed and his team continued sending secret messages to Earth, guiding humanity's case for survival. The clock was still ticking, but now there was real hope. They had found their loophole. Earth had 48 hours to prove its imagination was worth preserving. The final hours before the registry's decision were the longest in human history. Every person on Earth knew that by this time tomorrow, their planet would either be safe or completely gone. In the United Nations Emergency Chamber, Admiral Wilson watched the massive data transmissions streaming to the alien fleet and beyond, to the mysterious registry. Scientists, artists, writers, and musicians from around the world had contributed their best works, humanity's testament to its own worth. "Sir," a young lieutenant said, "Captain Reed is requesting to speak with you." Wilson nodded, and Reed's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired, but determined. "Admiral, we've made progress," Reed reported. "The registry has ordered a full review." "What are our chances?" Wilson asked. "Uncertain, but Commander Trell has been released from custody and is helping us navigate the process. Apparently, his challenge to the deletion order has garnered support among some of the alien crews." Wilson leaned forward. "What more can we do from Earth?" "Keep broadcasting, sir, but focus on our greatest imaginative leaps, the times humans envisioned something impossible, then made it real. Space, travel, computers, medical breakthroughs. Show how our creativity drives our progress." Wilson nodded. "We're on it." And Reed, "Good luck up there." Aboard the alien flagship, the atmosphere had changed. Many crew members now openly watched the human broadcasts, fascinated by Earth's creative output. Some even began questioning the deletion order among themselves. In a secure meeting room, Reed, Miller, and Fletcher sat with Commander Trell and several other alien officers who had joined their cause. "The registry representatives will arrive in 6 hours, Trell explained. "They rarely interact directly with any species. This is unprecedented." "What form will they take?" Miller asked. An alien officer named Lorne, whose green-tinted skin marked him as from a different star system than Trell, answered. "They exist primarily as energy. They will likely use projection forms that your minds can comprehend." "And Grand Admiral Vox?" Reed asked. "Where does he stand now?" "Unchanged," Trell said grimly. "He believes the registry will confirm the deletion order. He is preparing the fleet to carry out the procedure immediately after the decision." Fletcher looked troubled. "Even with all we've shown them, we could still lose everything." "There is one more option," Lorne said quietly. "The trial of value." All the aliens in the room stared at him in shock. "What's the trial of value?" Reed asked. Trell's four eyes blinked rapidly. An ancient protocol almost never invoked. If a species facing deletion can prove its unique value to the cosmos through direct demonstration, the registry must grant protection. Direct demonstration, what does that mean? Miller asked. You would need to solve a problem that no other species in the registry has solved, Lorne explained. Something that proves your creative approach has value to the entire universe. Reed straightened. We'll take it. Whatever the challenge, humans work best under pressure. On Earth, preparations for the trial of value threw the planet into a frenzy of activity. The greatest minds in every field stood ready to tackle whatever problem the registry might present. Admiral Wilson addressed them from the UN headquarters. We don't know what challenge we'll face. It could be scientific, philosophical, artistic, or something we can't even imagine. But I know this. Somewhere among us is the person or people who can solve it. The Brazilian president stepped forward. For the first time in history, all nations stand as one. There are no enemies today, only fellow humans fighting for our right to exist. A hush fell over the room as a transmission from the alien flagship appeared on screen. Captain Reed stood beside Commander Trell and several other aliens. The registry representatives have arrived, Reed announced. They've approved the trial of value. The challenge will be transmitted to Earth in 10 minutes. The next 10 minutes were the longest of Admiral Wilson's life. When the transmission finally came through, it wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of a message, a strange object materialized in the center of the UN chamber. A cube that seemed to shift and change, with symbols flowing across its surface in patterns too complex to follow. This is the cosmic puzzle, Trell's voice explained over the transmission. It has existed for billions of years. Over 10,000 intelligent species have attempted to solve it. None have succeeded. Dr. Miller studied the cube through the transmission. What are we supposed to do with it? Understand its purpose, and came the reply. You have 1 hour. The cosmic puzzle was instantly transmitted to every research center on Earth. Mathematicians, physicists, linguists, and artists all studied it from their different perspectives. Its patterns seemed random yet ordered, beautiful yet disturbing. At the Global Observatory, a team of scientists mapped the cube's changing symbols, looking for mathematical sequences. At art institutes, creative minds sought meaning in its patterns, comparing them to human artistic traditions. Children around the world watched the puzzle on screens, many drawing what they saw, interpreting it through innocent eyes. As the minutes ticked by, theories emerged and were discarded. The puzzle seemed to resist all conventional analysis. With 15 minutes remaining, a message came from an unexpected source. A classroom in a small town where a teacher had shown the puzzle to her students. The children say it's sad, the teacher reported. They think it's crying. Dr. Miller, watching from the alien flagship, froze. It has emotions? She turned to Commander Trell. Is the puzzle alive? Is it sentient? Trell's body stiffened. That is not a question any species has asked before. Reed caught on immediately. It's not a puzzle to be solved. It's a being to be understood. With 10 minutes left, Dr. Miller directed a new approach. Ask it what it wants. Don't try to solve it. Communicate with it. Around the world, people stopped trying to decode the cube and instead began treating it as a living entity. Musicians played to it, poets read to it, children spoke to it. In the final minute, the cube's patterns began to harmonize with the music being played, its colors matching the emotions in the poetry being read. And then, just as the time expired, the cube unfolded like a flower blooming, revealing a core of pure light that spread throughout the room. On the alien flagship, the registry representatives, beings of pure energy contained in crystalline vessels, pulsed with surprised recognition. The puzzle has awakened, one announced, its voice echoing strangely. In all our existence, no species has recognized its sentience. They all treated it as an object to be conquered, not a being to be understood. Grand Admiral Vox stood in stunned silence as the registry representatives continued. The human's instinct to connect, to empathize even with an alien puzzle. This is indeed a unique trait worthy of preservation. The deletion order is rescinded. Earth is now classified as a protected creative reserve. Cheers erupted from Earth as the news spread. Humanity had passed the test. Commander Trell approached Captain Reed, Dr. Miller, and Dr. Fletcher. "You have done the impossible. Your planet is safe now." "What happens next?" Reed asked. "The Armada will depart," Trell explained. "But some of us will stay as ambassadors. The registry is curious about humanity now. Your species has much to teach the galaxy about imagination and empathy." As the alien ships began to leave Earth's orbit one by one, Admiral Wilson raised a toast at the United Nations to humanity's imagination, the power that saved our world. Around the planet, people celebrated not just their survival but the dawn of a new era. Earth was no longer alone in the cosmos, and the deletion that should have happened millions of years ago had finally been erased from the schedule, permanently. The experiment called humanity would continue, now recognized across the stars for what made it special: the ability to imagine, create, and connect.